How many of you enjoy flossing? How many of you are competent at flossing? How many of you outsource flossing? Now these are the questions Diane Darling asks her audience whenever she gives a speech on the art of networking, and is also one of the many practical anecdotes Diane has put in her book, The Networking Survival Guide. Get the success you want by tapping the people you know. Now much like flossing, Diane explains that networking is something most people don't enjoy and claim that they don't have time for, but it is fundamentally important to the health of your career. Now the book begins by simply asking the question, why should I read this book? And her main message here is that there are certain skills that you need to learn when networking, and this book is an excellent way of learning how to appropriately hone this craft. Her book certainly stays true to the message, with tips and tricks on almost every page. Diane's first trick is to understand that everyone is listening to the same radio station, WIIFM, or What's in It for Me. Now you need to understand that both parties are listening to this station during networking, but also understand that it's rarely a tangible exchange. Most of the time, just learning about someone's livelihood and interests will give you more of their time in the future. Now fitting in beautifully with the course, her next section is titled Personal Brand. Now Diane says you have anywhere from 3 to 20 seconds to make a good impression of yourself and of your personal brand. Some tips to remember include recognizing your personal strength, recognize the gaps in your personal brand, and invest time and energy to overcome these. You have to take a look at how you market yourself, similar to Glenn Morgan's article on critical theory. While Morgan mainly focuses on a business's brand, it is still relevant to an individual's brand. Morgan emphasizes the importance of understanding the customer for marketing, and the same applies with networking. So next, Diane talks about what networking is and what it is not, and recognizing the difference. Networking is expanding your contacts before you need them. It's without a direct immediate need. You are not selling anything or trying to get a job or soliciting donations when you network. Instead, you are simply building relationships before you need them. Networking is all about sharing knowledge or contacts, getting the help you need, and getting more done with less effort, and even helping others. Being personal and friendly is fundamental. Diane says that when customers leave a business, 15% of them do so because they found a lower price, 15% of them because they found a better product, but 70% leave because of a difference in human interaction. Some further statistics Diane gives is that only 1 to 5% of cold calls work. Now 15% of referrals work when a name is given out, but the success rate jumps to 50% if a connection writes an email or makes a phone call on your behalf. This success rate jumps to 80% in the business world if you have a contact there rooting for you during a meeting or a contact. So this plays very true to having contacts, and a large network can be very crucial to your successes. But Diane focuses on saying it's always about quality rather than quantity. Now next, Diane talks about how to get started using a simple quote. Conditions are never perfect. People who delay action until all conditions are favorable are the kind who get nothing done. And that's a quote from William Feather. Now going back to what was said before, networking is about building relationships before you need them. So start now. Diane offers a few situations you can put yourself in for simple interactions, such as asking opinions on a few products in a grocery store, or asking about someone's dog. These small conversation starters are harmless and are equally okay if they fall flat once over or if they continue to something more. This practice at simple interaction may seem kind of silly, but the more practice you get at it, at talking with strangers, the more natural your interactions will become. Now networking requires lots of practice, and it also requires a certain degree of preparation. Diane goes into detail about business cards, a networking buddy system, how to handle conversations, best practices face-to-face, best practices when not face-to-face, and how to appropriately follow up after a meeting has taken place. But she takes a neoliberal approach at the end when she talks heavily about gender, race, culture, and other social networking factors, and how to respond appropriately to them. For example, Asian cultures typically place a very high value on their business cards, so writing notes on them in their presence could be a terribly rude thing to do, and is definitely something to be avoided. Now networking is something we all have to do, and it can be very hard for us to come out of our shell and put ourselves out there. Effectively conveying our own personal brand can be very difficult, but Diane provides an excellent guide full of tips to do this effectively. Like flossing, it may not be enjoyable and even painful at first, but with practice, you can become a pro.